Hello folks, and welcome back to Touhou 7 Perfect Cherry Blossom. Last time we cleared the main game, and today we're here to challenge the extra stage. Now, if you remember, last time we defeated Yuyuko, put a stop to the incident, and returned Spring to Gensokyo, but as it seems, that's not all we got. The problem we have now is that the spirits of the dead are seeping over from the Netherworld. As it turns out, when Yuyuko wanted to steal Spring, she asked for help from one of her friends to weaken the barrier between the land of the living and the land of the dead. Now, 10 days later, she asked Reimu, Marissa, and Sakuya to find her friend in order to help repair the barrier. And that's why we're here today. Now, as always, the extra stage is exceedingly difficult, but it often has in it some of the best music, best characters, and funnest bullet patterns, and I think the effort is well worth it. So, let's begin. Extra stage. The cherry trees were already in full bloom. However, the Japanese heart wasn't satisfied quite yet. Background music is charming domination. So, because of the difficulty, I'm gonna do what I did in Touhou 6's extra stage, and take the stage bit by bit so I can be a little more thorough. The first part of the stage involves a lot of rapid aim shots, and a lot of streaming. For the first two waves, you have to stream up and down, first to avoid their shots, and then to stay in between them. The next three waves of enemies have you streaming from side to side. You should know that in the extra stage, unlike in the main game, you can collect all of the items at once by going to the top of the screen, and you don't have to be in full power mode to do this. So it's probably best that you ignore going for individual items and instead focus on collecting items in this manner. The next part of the stage has four waves of fairies whose shots at first can seem like they're random but are actually aimed at you. And once you realize that they are, you can use this to your advantage to make this part a lot easier. And you can make this even easier if you're able to follow them and take them out before they're able to fire off their shots. You want to try and destroy the fairies that appear here as soon as they appear on the screen. Not only will this prevent them from firing their shots, but it's also a good place to do some item collection. Unlike in Touhou 6's extra stage, you can actually earn a lot more extra lives in this stage, as you can see on the side of the screen. If you're good about it, you can usually earn about 2 or 3 extra lives, so you can see why getting as many items as possible is extremely beneficial to you. Eventually, the fairies will start coming in groups of 4, and you won't be able to destroy them all before they're able to fire their shots, so the best you're going to be able to do is move from side to side to move around the shots. This is capped off by one last wave of enemies shooting aim shots at you. Just stream downwards to avoid them. The Stage 2 boss, Chen, returns as the extra mid-boss. It seems because her master is nearby now, her power has increased considerably. Wait until the last possible second to move to the side to avoid her blue shots, and be careful of your surroundings when moving through her red shots. And also try and stay in front of her as much as possible. Here's her first spell card, Oni Sign, Blue Oni, Red Oni. There are 2 ways you can deal with this spell card. The normal way is to move from side to side when the blue and red bullets come at you. The more risky way is to stream the bullets vertically instead of horizontally, and to stay in front of her. Streaming the bullets horizontally is of course a lot less dangerous but will take a lot longer, and streaming vertically is a lot more dangerous but will end the spell card a lot quicker. This is her second spell card, Oni God, Soaring Guardian God. To do damage to her, you have to follow her around the screen as much as possible, but you also want to be careful that you don't let yourself be pushed to one of the edges of the screen, and especially not to the bottom of the screen. You also need to be careful of when she doubles back on herself, so as to not get caught in her way. For the most part, you should try and stay inside the circle she creates. The next part of the stage have these fairies that appear and very quickly fire these lines of aim shots directly at you. Try to keep your movements controlled and don't move too erratically. Also, don't double back on yourself if you can help it. You should also try and watch the screen. The little wisps that are on the screen will tell you when a fairy is about to appear, so you can be ready for its shots. This part of the stage is just a heavy barrage of bullets. While you should take out as many of the enemies on the screen that you can so that there are less bullets being fired off that you have to dodge around. Eventually there will be a group of enemies that come firing aim shots directly at you, so plan ahead a path that you can move through when that happens. The last part of the stage is pretty unique. It's 3 waves of these circle enemies that shoot these spreads of aim shots. You should be able to deal with the first wave of them fairly easily. For the center waves, start at the center of one of the sides of the screen and gradually move to the opposite bottom corner. Then move back to your original position. The third wave is a little more complicated, requiring you to move in this kind of Z formation in order to avoid all of its shots. And just like that, we're done with the easy part. You should know by now what's coming up next. This is the Shikigami of the Yokai of Boundaries, Ran Yakumo. Her theme is a maiden's illusionary funeral, necro-fantasy. But most importantly, she's not the person we're looking for, but rather just their Shikigami. Whatever. Nonetheless, let's read her profile to find out more about her. Extra boss, and a Shikigami. She does her master's work for her while her master sleeps. She has the ability to mainly use Shikigami. Her master sleeps 12 hours per day and is only awake from sunset to midnight. And on top of that, she hibernates through the winter. Because of that, Ran takes care of her master's work while she's asleep. Ran has been a Shikigami for quite a long time, so she's more powerful than an ordinary yokai. For that matter, she had enough power to possess her own Shikigami. Perhaps she has already forgotten that she herself is a Shikigami. Every year, when cherry blossoms are about to bloom, she visits the Netherworld for a flower viewing. The cherry blossoms this year feel very pleasant. Just as she was considering that, some living humans dropped in. She watched them with interest for a few moments. She later heard that her own Shikigami had been defeated by them, so she plotted a little revenge. Her true form is that of a fox turned yokai. Like Chen, her shape is unchanged and she has a well-sociable personality. Even without looking closely, it's obvious that she has several tails. As a matter of fact, when it matters, she has plenty of powers in her own on her true form. Through all these events, her master continues to sleep. Her first spell card is Shikigami, Wizard Fox Thoughts. The movement for this one is very simple. When the first wave of bullets appear, tap either the left or the right button only once to get out of the way, then keep tapping that same button each time a new group of bullets appears. The safe spot is right next to the center bullets, but be careful not to overshoot it. Usually just one tap of the button will be enough. Also, if it gets too hectic to follow with your eyes, it might be better to follow the audio cue for when a new group of bullets appears. So, just like Chen, Ran is a yokai that's been turned into a Shikigami by her master. Specifically, she's a type of yokai that's known as a kitsune. Now, kitsune is the Japanese word for fox, but it's also a type of yokai that was said to have the form of a fox. Every 100 years or so, kitsunes are said to grow an extra tail, and to also grow in power and intellect. So, since Ran is a 9-tailed fox, we know that she is at least 800 years old, and also very powerful. Here's your second spell card, Shikigami, Banquet of the 12 General Gods. This one has a lot going on, and a lot of different bullets going everywhere. The best place to be is near one of the bottom corners, as this is where the least amount of bullets will be coming at you. For the most part in this battle, you shouldn't have to worry too much about staying in front of Ran in order to do damage to her. Most of the time, she'll get in front of you enough on her own that you'll be able to do enough damage. So, Ran is a Shikigami, just like Chen, and I already talked about what a Shikigami is when we met Chen, but for a refresher, it's basically a yokai that somebody else has created and controls through the use of a type of magic. Ran is powerful enough to have a Shikigami of her own, who is Chen, and while this is impressive on its own, it also makes you wonder how powerful Ran's master must be in order to control somebody as powerful as Ran. Third spell card she uses is Shikigami's Radiance, Fox Tanuki Yokai Laser. Since there's a pretty big spread of aim shots, it might be tempting to make wide side-to-side movements to keep the bullets away from you, but it's actually better to stay closer to the center of the lasers, and try and keep moving from one side to the other through the gaps in between them. This way you're moving enough to dodge the spread, but it's also a lot less likely that you'll be boxed in. So, it's no secret that Zune is a big fan of JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, and that the Touhou games have a lot of references to it. And because of that, it's probably not a coincidence that Shikigamis function similar to how stands work in JoJo. They're both a type of spirit or separate being that's controlled by somebody else, and they also both get more powerful the closer they are to their user. There's even a reference to this fact later in Merce's dialogue, but it might also be a coincidence. I mean, it's very rare for a stand in JoJo to also control a stand. I mean, it's not like Chen has no weaknesses. This is her fourth spell card, Shikigami's Radiance, Charming Siege from All Sides. This one can be pretty difficult. You have to stay in the box that the lines of bullets create around you, while also avoiding the larger orbs. When the orbs come at you, move around and over them, and don't be afraid to get too close to them if you have to. Also pay attention to the orbs ahead of you so you can know how you're going to have to move ahead of time. Like I said, this one can be really difficult because it's very random and it's really easy to get caught in a bad spot. This is a good time to mention that bombing won't do any damage to Ron, just like with Flandre last game. So, unfortunately, it looks like this trip is a waste. Ron isn't who we're looking for, and she's not really going to be able to help us fix the barrier. We're going to have to come back later and talk to her master. After, of course, we deal with Ron, who isn't exactly a pushover herself. For her 5th spell card, she uses Shikigami's Radiance, Princess Tenko, Illusion. This one requires pretty precise timing. You have to move in a way that makes it so that when she warps to you, she's both in front of you so that you can do damage, and also makes it so that the spread of bullets is easier to dodge. The best strategy to do this is to keep moving horizontally from one side of the screen to the other. Move to the other side of the screen just when she fires the spread of bullets, and when you get to the other side and she starts moving to you, move down a little bit so that you'll be hitting her. Your timing has to be really spot on here. Moving too early or too late will cause her to warp to the wrong spot, and it's really hard to correct this once you've messed it up. So, Chen and Ron's names both have a bit of meaning to them. Chen can be translated to mean orange, and Ron can be more literally translated to indigo. Now, if you compare these two colors on a light spectrum, indigo light has much more energy than orange light does, just like how Ron is much more powerful than Chen was. One more bit of trivia, Ron Yakumo is not actually Ron's original name, but rather just the name that her master gave her when she was turned into a Shikigami. We're never told Ron's original name. Here's your 6th spell card, Shikigami's Shot, Ultimate Buddhist. Oh, okay, I know what this looks like, but remember, it was a Buddhist symbol first. Anyway, wait at the bottom of the screen until you hear the master spark noise. This is your cue to be ready to move. When the bullets disappear, get closer to her and start moving in a circle, following in the arms of the, spiral. You'll do this for about 2 revolutions. Then, when the bullets disappear again, get to the edge of the screen and move back in front of her. Then just rinse and repeat from there. So, despite her being an extra boss, there isn't actually too much for me to talk about with Ron. She's not too much of a major character in the series, and she doesn't really appear much in anything else outside of small cameos here and there. This is probably because she's more often overshadowed by a much more important person who we might meet a little later on. Ron's 7th spell card is Shikigami's Shot, Unilateral Contact. At first it might seem like the most dangerous part of this spell card is the curving bullets, as they're moving in a weird way and coming at you at an angle that you're probably not used to. But they move pretty slowly, and as long as you're not at the bottom of the screen, you should be able to see them coming and move around them easily enough. What's actually the most dangerous part of this spell card is when they curve around again and come down at you for a second time, as you're probably not going to be expecting this and they come at you pretty fast. What'll most likely cause you to fail this spell card is getting caught off guard. So you have to know what's coming next, anticipate it, and be ready for it. Since Ron's a Shikigami, that means she has a master, and that person has to be pretty powerful, considering she has a Shikigami as powerful as Ron that's powerful enough to have her own Shikigami, and Shen wasn't a pushover. Also, she's strong enough to make a hole in the barrier between the Netherworld and the living world, and strong enough to repair it, which is why we're trying to find her. This person sounds really quite interesting. I'd like to meet them. It's too bad we probably won't. I mean, it's not like there's something that comes after the extra stage, right? Here's your 8th spell card, Shikigami Chen. Yep, Chen makes a reappearance as a spell card, which is pretty fitting if you think about it. The best place to be for this spell card is near the center of the screen. For the most part, the bullets are easy enough to dodge on their own. What's actually the most dangerous part about this spell card is Chen herself, as she's what's most likely to hit you if you're not paying attention to where she's going. She keeps zigzagging up and down the screen, so it should be easy enough for you to tell where she's going to go next. Whenever she's moving upward, try and get below her, and whenever she's moving downward, try and get above her. Her 9th spell card is Kokuri-san's Contract. This is a survival spell card. As you can see, Ron's not on the screen anymore, meaning there's no way for us to do damage to her. So the only way for us to capture this spell card is to survive for 75 seconds. The lasers create a ring of bullets around you that you have to stay in and follow it as it moves around the screen, while also avoiding the rows of bullets that appear. First, the ring will move to the lower left-hand corner of the screen, and after that, it will move across the screen to the lower right-hand corner of the screen. After staying there for a while, it will then move to the center top of the screen. Then it will move down to the left-hand side of the screen. And then finally, it will move back to the center of the screen, where you will then have to dodge the waves of bullets that come from the corners of the screen. It should be obvious, but it's easier to move through the individual rows of bullets than to move through the crisscrossing ones. So, when you're coming to a corner, you should move out of the row of bullets that you're in before moving to the second one. Also, you should know that during the last part of this spell card, the ring will start to close in on you, but you only have to really focus on dodging from 4 directions, as the waves of bullets are only coming at you from the corners. So just ignore all of the other bullets on the screen, and you should be fine. And this is Ron's 10th and final spell card, Illusion God, Descent of Izuna Gongen. At first, this one starts out simple enough, but of course, this spell card gets harder and harder as time goes on, as about every 10 seconds or so, a new group of bullets is thrown into the mix. There's no definite style or strategy to this one, it's just a test of how good you are at dodging, and the advice I give you for this one is the advice I always give. Just stay calm and focus. Pay attention to the bullets ahead of you, try to predict where they're going to be and how you're going to have to move to dodge them. Don't be afraid of getting close to the bullets if you have to, and try and stay in front of her as much as possible. Just do your best, and hope for the best. Really, just don't get hit by the bullets. Anyway, I don't know about you, but I think we wasted enough time playing with this fox. We still have to fix that barrier. It's time for her to tell us where her master's gone off to. Well, looks like if we want to meet Ron's master, we gotta come back later at night when she's actually awake. So, at the beginning of this game, I said that this game starts a lot of things that are continued in many of the later games in the series, but there is one thing that's entirely unique to this game only. This game is the only game in the entire Touhou series to have a level that actually goes above the extra stage. So, next time, we'll challenge the Phantasm stage.